Hello and good afternoon and good morning to you guys, parents. I'm so glad to be here broadcasting today on episode 17. We're already here, episode 17, and I want to welcome everybody to you that's joining us live, and also if you're joining us watching the replay. Obviously today we're in a unique time, and I'm really privileged. I think it's not a coincidence that the guests that we've selected today for this episode we're coming on on a very timely note, and I'm very excited to introduce you to them. But I want to ask you guys, everybody's getting a crash course on homeschooling. Day two, everybody, at least in our area, I know all across the country, everybody's closing schools, but ours, we received the notification Friday evening that the schools have been canceled for 3 weeks. And it's been interesting to, over the weekend, as I've been out and about and communicated with people and parents, a lot of them are now, have a bunch of kids at home that they didn't expect. And, I want everybody to know that our thoughts and our prayers are with everybody. I know that for some it's a very fearful or very unsettling, uneasy as we go into new things, that maybe we're not used to. So I hope that in this broadcast, though, you'll be more at peace. You'll receive some information, some valuable tools that'll help you in your parenting journey and help us all become more equipped to parent intentionally. That is the message today. That is what we're going to be talking about, parenting intentionally. And there is a couple that I've gotten to know recently that do this very, very well. So I am very, very excited to invite my guest on the show today, Scott and Kaylin Benham. Thank you guys for joining us. Thank you for taking the time out of your day. I know that things are pretty busy in your house, and really appreciate it.
Yeah, well, thank you.
Thanks for having us, Jason.
No problem. So take a few minutes. I know you, and much of the audience may know you, but there's probably quite a few who don't. Tell us a little bit about yourselves, where you're from, your family. I know you guys are doing some unique things with the family, and I see your pet in the background. It looks like she's really cozy. That's awesome.
Yeah. Well, we are the Benhams, Scott and Kaylin, and we have like an eclectic life, I would say. We've really we live intentionally. So not only parent intentionally, but really live intentionally. So it's the two of us. We have 4 kids. We have a 10-year-old, a 8-year-old, a 6-year-old, and a 21-month-old.
Oh, wow.
And our dog is 13. We also homeschool, and we're entrepreneurs. So we work from home, homeschool the kids on the regular, not just during quarantine season.
Right. And so that sounds like a lot of activity, and it sounds to me like there has to be a lot of organization to make that run well.
Yes, there does.
Yeah.
And
have you always homeschooled your kids, or is this something new?
It's pretty new. I mean, it's 2 years in.
Yeah.
Okay.
But I feel like it's always new. Like when you've got that many things happening entrepreneurially. It's a word, right?
Mm-hmm.
It's just it's an ever morphing kind of thing.
Yeah.
Right. So the reason we giggled before was because we actually don't have great organization yet around our schedule, because things change so dramatically sometimes. So the whole homeschooling your kids now because all the kids are home from school is, in a way, this is our normal. Like not just the homeschooling part, but oh my goodness, your schedule has been thrown, or somebody threw a wrench in your schedule. What do you do?
Right.
We're still nailing down the organization of time allotments because it changes on a pretty regular basis.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I do feel like because of our unique situation, that's a superpower for us is being able to bend and weave and move and stay unified when the wrench gets thrown in, whether it's like, oh, Scott gets a project that he needs to have time for, or oh, we have something we want to do with the kids with school, or I have a new client that I need to push time for. So there's always wrenches.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can only imagine that transition with the kids. And did you decide to homeschool all of them at the same time, or did you like take one and then maybe another and go into it slowly?
Yeah, I felt like, so we're people of faith, and I really felt God lay it on my heart in, I guess it was early 2018, that for the next school year we would be homeschooling. And at that point we had 2 like school-aged kids.
Okay.
So my daughter was still like 4 going on 5. So she was pre-K. So yeah, we did pull them all in the same time while we had a brand new baby.
Oh, wow. I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I
by the way, we moved to Florida shortly before.
It's okay.
Wow.
Go big.
Where did you guys move from?
Just a western suburb of Chicago, little town called Geneva, Illinois.
Wow. So from Illinois to Chicago, big transition, new baby, and decided to homeschool all your kids.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Sounds like you guys are pretty ambitious.
Yes.
I appreciate the vulnerability here. I appreciate you guys sharing and just being willing to admit that, there might be a chaotic system that actually may be less chaotic. It just looks like it's chaotic on the outside.
Yeah.
But yet, everything is kind of working and flowing. And I think that's important for families to understand, is that there is a rhythm. There's a rhythm to every family, and not every family has the same rhythm. And what might look normal to one may be different to, than another,
Oh,
and
yeah.
to have to accept that and be okay with that.
That's a big deal.
Yeah.
Right? It's a big deal, especially with, not to delve too deep into homeschool, but especially with homeschool, right? Because there's like a stigma to a certain degree on it. And the idea that like everybody has it figured out is just kind of, it's a difficult, it's
misleading.
difficult. Yeah, it's not real. It's totally not real. So we would rather not pretend that it's real, right? That like everything is figured out and that we have it all nailed down. Well, like it's kind of like a regular, it's like our little visitors.
Right.
It's just it's a regular thing that we have to roll with. So I think a lot of times what you'll find with us is that like we're willing to admit the things that aren't perfect, because sometimes in the articulation of them, like the imperfection actually helps us see the breakthrough in it, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does.
Right?
Well, yeah, for sure. I mean, for us, there's a lot with transition, right? Any kind of transition, you have a lot that gets stirred up inside, a lot of like things that get triggered and pointed at and picked at. And so one of our strategies is really just being willing to say all of those things that get pushed on, because we know that if we're willing to kind of reveal what's going on inside, that's our quickest way to freeing up that space for more forward movement and just peace, like the peace of our insides, the peace of the kids' insides, and the peace of inside our home.
Yeah.
Right.
And a lot of times that's the thing that precipitates, right? Like that's the good that falls out of it, but it starts off with like a lightning thunderstorm, So it's like frustration about time. And that's the biggest thing that like I really feel like these 2 or 3 weeks or a month, whatever it's going to happen with parents, like for guys specifically, right? If anybody's like me, like when you think you have time and then it gets taken away, all of a sudden, like sometimes it can be really difficult to roll with those punches. And I would consider myself like fantastic at rolling with punches. But when it comes to time, sometimes that's the most difficult thing. So really navigating like our relationship with time compared to the things that are really important, right? Because if the kids now are the requirement of your time and not a project or a meeting or a commute,
Yeah.
it's like when you first became a parent, like, and you realized just how selfish you were. It's kind of that way.
Kids bring the best and the worst out of us, right? Like, they have a way of doing that.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Well, this is very helpful. I think about a lot of the parents now. I've been homeschooling my high schooler since everybody came back to school from Christmas. We decided to homeschool her, and for her, it's been going really good. We did homeschool her, all my kids several years ago for about a year and a half, and so they had a taste of it. They kind of knew what they were in for, what to expect. So homeschooling a high schooler is a lot different, though, than homeschooling younger ones. A high schooler, she has the Chromebook. She pretty much does it all on her own. So there's a limited amount of effort that I have to put into it, except just following up with her and making sure that things are done the way that they're supposed to be, and that she's on track and that she's doing the work. Thinking about, all of America now, kids are home. A lot of parents never expected this. What advice, and I just want to take a moment and, all the viewers, you guys are here live. If you have a question for any of us, post a question in the comments. Don't be shy, and then we'll see if we can get to them. I definitely would like some feedback from the audience on all this stuff. But what would you, is there any kind of advice or anything that you would say to somebody that's been forced to homeschool now? And, day number 2, like, at least for most of us, that now, ready or not, you're a homeschooler.
Yeah. Well, I guess the first thing that I would say is one of the core things that we've learned through homeschooling is just how much the kids learn outside of formal topics. So math, history, science, things like that. There's so much to learn in just being with each other. Mm-hmm. And so I had even made a post the other day, like, what if parents didn't focus on like the homeschooling and let that get like this big overwhelm for them, but they really just started to focus on reconnecting with who each child is, and
right.
Give that child a space of expression.
Yeah.
And figure out how they like to learn. And when I say figure out, I don't mean like a big system. I just mean like, hey, the kid likes science-y type things, or they're drawn towards history, or whatever they're drawn towards. Maybe they're drawn towards building something or playing sports. We'll just create spaces and pockets throughout the day where you can intentionally engage with them with those things. Mm-hmm. And that was kind of like one of our big learnings about homeschooling is, hey, one of our values is just that the kids continue to enjoy the love of learning as opposed to what they're learning.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can I just add to that? Because that's so good. Kaylin is by far the expert. I'm still like an apprentice with this stuff, but because her like emotional awareness is so like profound, I get to like learn on both ends. But so I like to kind of simplify things a little bit. So I think of like a baseball game, right? If you went to a professional baseball game, we live here in South Florida, so the Miami Marlins are the local team, right? If you went to a professional baseball game, you would expect a certain level of play, right? You'd expect a certain level of play. You'd expect an adherence to the rules. You'd expect people to understand what to do and what not to do, right? 7th inning stretch, clapping, all that stuff.
Yeah.
But like when you go to a Little League game, you can't carry those expectations to the Little League game. But parents do, right? Baseball ready, get your arms up, get your legs down. Like, you know what I mean? Like, so like, and it feels like it feels like the weight is too significant. When it comes to homeschool, it's not just about bringing school home, even though the name would indicate that. It's really about like identifying, like Kaylin said, what's your child really like? Like, do you have to do math? Yeah. Right. But can they do math some way different way than on paper on a computer? 100%. Like, absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's contextualizing it. And again, I want to speak to the dads. I bet you there's a lot of moms out there like this too, but I want to speak to the dads for a second and just know, like, your path to success is 100% dependent upon your ability to disconnect yourself from the other things that you want to do during homeschooling time. You cannot effectively multitask homeschooling and a Zoom call or a text message or project management. You just can't do it.
Right.
It's going to lead to frustration. So if you're like, gosh, Scott, I'm so frustrated, ask yourself this. Are you trying to do more than just homeschool at the same time? If yes, then stop. If no, then the next question is, are you putting, professional baseball expectations on a little league baseball game? If yes, then stop. If no, then go to question 1.
Right. That's really powerful. That's so important.
Yeah. And I think that was something we actually decided is when we're schooling the kids, like whether it's me or Scott or both of us, because we have a little toddler running around. So sometimes it does have to be both of us because, whatever.
Yeah, get to move around and
there's distraction or whatever. We are 100% focused on that.
Mm-hmm.
And if we can't focus on that, like if there's some project that we're working on for work or something else going on that is taking our mental or emotional priority, then we don't school right then. So we don't keep the schedule no matter what. We let the schedule sometimes bend depending on if something comes up. And that's something that's like it's like an ongoing navigation.
Well, talk about how like that's also like dependent upon your kids' personalities, right? Because we do have friends that are like 9 to 12 every day and it works for them.
Yeah.
It's just like
totally. And so, and that's, so for us, like we're very intentional. So we kind of identified pockets of time. So there's the pocket of time where we're homeschooling. Then there's the pocket of time that like, hey, we need to create some things for the kids to do that do not have our participation. And then we need to create for the kids time that's just us being a family.
Right.
It has no task associated with it. It has, nothing else associated with it, but that's just our family time. And then like around that and within that is like, oh, Scott needs time that he's going to go work and he's got a list of things to accomplish. I've got time that I need to work. And then I've got a list of, our just life things to accomplish. Mm-hmm. So when we kind of just identified, okay, what are the valuable buckets of time in our family that we want to be intentional, we need to be intentional about? And how do we fit those in each day?
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And so like Scott said, some families will just chunk it out from 9 to 12 every day. We don't. We maybe school like, from 8:30 to 9:30 in the morning. And then might take another chunk at like from 1 to 2 when Eli's sleeping. And then we might do some more at night through reading and just other things.
Yeah.
So we just kind of have a very fluid look at what needs to get done and what the priorities are and making sure each of those buckets get filled each day.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. Go ahead. Yeah.
the intentionality, the intentionality piece is like the central nervous system of the whole thing.
Right.
Right. So the voices that I'm hearing and are like, well, that doesn't sound very intentional, guys. You guys are just kind of haphazard with your time. Uh-huh. How do you know your kids are going to get what they need?
Right.
Right. Like to put it into context, and this is like our daughter started her kindergarten curriculum this year, and she's already into her first grade curriculum, like before the new year, right? So around Christmas. So the amount of time, and this is not a knock on public school because I'm a product of public school, right? But the amount of time that's not used in school can be easily accelerated at home.
Yes.
right? Because if you think about it, like with just two of us, like we get one-on-one time with each of the kids, and we get to help them through each problem, like in each situation. So sometimes they're faster and sometimes they're slower. So intentionality, you almost have to change the way you look at the definition of intentionality,
Right.
because the intentionality doesn't always have to be about time. You can't define intentionality to just be about time,
Yeah.
right? So I think it's really important for us.
Brings a whole other topic.
Well, that's what I'm saying. It's important for us to define things so that we understand how we're operating with them. Because if we're thinking about intentionality as just time, well, that's not totally true, because it also has to be about efficacy within the time, you know? So then all of a sudden the definition becomes a little bit more robust.
Well, and your values, like your family values, and whether you know them or you operate with them without knowing, because everybody has them. You just might not be aware of it. So that's like family culture. And it's just like that determines, for us, that determines our intention level with anything. So for us, a family value is freedom. Well, that's is connection. Also why we homeschool, but it's also why we like why we're willing to kind of bend and weave throughout the day. Because if somebody's like heart needs to be connected with, and so because their heart needs to be connected with, and they can't actually participate in happy learning and like great learning, then we will always put that heart connection above the formal schooling or homeschooling that needs to happen at that time or that time. So that's kind of where it can seem really messy. But if a family, and this is something that we love to do with families, so reach out to us if you want to do this, but is really to identify what are the things that are driving you. Are they the things you want to be driving you, or do you need a reassessment, a readjustment, a reset? And then letting those create what you become intentional with.
Mm-hmm.
So
it's good to marinate on that for a second.
Yeah.
Like most people are taught what to think, not how to think.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So when you take that concept into plan, like a lot of times we just go, not we, but people go and they just do. And then all of a sudden, like they're on the path to somebody else's life, somebody else's goals. Maybe it's your boss's or your company's goals.
Yeah.
Right? Nothing wrong with being an employee, but think about what's important to you, because if the words that we're speaking somewhat resonate, the reason that they resonate is because you have a desire and an unexpressed possibility that's within you that you're like, God, why isn't this happening? And it's just because like this thing that you have that's going is kind of hitting a ceiling. And it's like, it's the unexpressed possibility that's saying, well, man, I would really love a little bit more time freedom, or I'd love more than just 6:30 to 8 p.m. with my kids every day, right? Because that's what we found ourselves in. We found ourselves moved to Florida, brand new school, brand new church, brand new community. And then all of a sudden, our quality time was 7 a.m. to 8:30, high stress, homework, breakfast, get dressed, get to school, car line. And then in the afternoon, and if there was extracurricular activities, we were getting max 2.5 hours of quality time.
Well, it wasn't even quality.
Not even quality, just time.
Transition times.
With our kids.
And everybody knows transition times are, a little high stress.
Well, and the encouragement, right? You know this, Jason. Like the encouragement is like you actually have a choice. So to a certain degree, we didn't like know what we were getting ourselves into, but we knew, like we were looking on the horizon for freedom, and we said, okay, we know this is going to get us closer. And the price to pay for that was kind of like whatever it takes to get us closer to that.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I think that, the homeschooling topic, I mean, there's a lot that we just said. Let's go back for a moment to, I'm thinking about a lot of the parents now that have kids at home and they're like trying to figure out what to do with them. So I think it's important that they said, and you guys said it very well, that homeschool it doesn't look the same for every family, but it doesn't always, time can be restructured.
Yeah.
And in most cases probably shortened. And so, if you're a parent out there and you've got kids at home now, don't feel bad if you're not spending 6 or 7 hours with them on school.
Oh my
Because
gosh.
most of the time
Please
they
don't
won't
do
need
that.
it.
Don't do it to your kids.
Yeah.
Or
yourself.
just don't do that. That's so much pressure.
Yeah. But if people, and so I was commenting before we got disconnected that, it just seems that so many, I believe that if parents will learn how to take and adapt to this new parenting style that they're going through in terms of the education, I think that it could be parents will learn to love it. And, it could be that next year a lot more parents will decide to start homeschooling their kids because they see the value in it. And, the value we could talk about for days. There's a ton of value in just what you guys are talking about, more time spent with family, more quality time with your kids, could, possibly even be about better education, and the list goes on. So it's really important that parents don't feel that homeschooling has to look a certain way, or it has to resemble even, public or private school, but really adapt it to the rhythm of your own family. That's
Yeah.
key.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think, if, one thing I would just say to families right now that are either, whatever position you're in, because here for us, a limited part of our lives have been sort of upheavaled, right? Like, so we're typically homeschooling. So that hasn't changed much. We're typically, entrepreneurs and working from home. So that hasn't changed much. But for us, we are a part of a homeschooling co-op, which canceled, which is not happening. We've got the kids are in extracurricular activities. They do martial arts, they do dance, they do, not all of them, and baseball. So it's like all of those things got canceled. So we're just shifting up time. And I think, if you could kind of step back and think about a year from now, when all this is said and gone, how do I want to have experienced this time with my family? And with whatever circumstances, have had to be readjusted for you, and really kind of enter in from that perspective. I think that is kind of where parents will find their most valuable and powerful position right now. And that could lead to somebody contemplating, oh, this might actually be a good step for our family. As opposed to if you're coming into it from a place of fear and oh my gosh, I've got to keep them on schedule, and I've got to keep them on schedule. I've got to do my work. There's no toilet paper. There's no food, this mentality. Not a lot of good decisions get made from that place.
Yeah, that's true. So the parenting intentionally goes beyond schooling, and I would love to continue talking about homeschooling, but aside, in addition to homeschooling, what kind of, what would you say would be a good gauge as to whether we're, as a parent, parenting accurately or parenting intentionally or not? What might be a good, what would you say would be a good gauge for that?
Oh gosh, that's a tough one because again,
start simple with this one.
Oh geez.
Let me frame this a little bit, because I think that parenting intentionally, especially for us guys, right? So let's go back to when you were seeking your wife out and you were dating. I'm sure that you were very intentional about that. At least in most cases, most guys were. I know I was very intentional when I met my wife, and as I was getting to know her, I planned things, I prepared, there's a lot of thought and a lot of planning in every date and every phone call. I was really intentional about it because I wanted a lasting relationship. And so in terms of our children, I think that, and I've been here before, this is why I'm saying this, is that I think in terms of our children, especially as they grow older and they approach that teenage phase of their life, they go through a lot of changes and they get their personality, they learn more about who they are, they, experiment and to see what they can get away with. They go through a lot of different challenging things. And I think that a lot of parents, it's easy if we're not careful to take a step back at that moment and kind of let their child or let that teenager kind of grow on their own.
Yeah.
And I'm seeing that this is a time where parents need to step in and lean in more and really focus on parenting through the teenage years and through that time and parent intentionally. I believe that kids need their parents more than ever at that age. And I feel like parents kind of can go on to an autopilot.
Yeah. Well, and I even think parents can do that. I mean, parents can do that at any point in parenting. And I think it still goes back to really asking yourself a question of like, what are you trying to create with your family? And a lot of people go into parenting with, what I don't want to create. Like, well, I'm not going to do what my parents did, or I'm not going to do this or that.
Right.
But they don't necessarily know what they want to create. And if they do know what they want to create, they're not necessarily sure how to create that. And so what you find is then you have parents that are actually acting a way that is different from what they truly desire or how they truly want to act. And that kind of raises that internal conflict as a parent. Yeah. And so I feel like that was our story, is we had a desire to parent differently. We had great parents. Like, they did the best that they could with what they had. But since we became believers in Jesus, we just had different desires to create for our family. And so, but we didn't know how to do that. Mm-hmm. And so it was really deciding, one little thing at a time, based on really looking at the frustrations we were having.
Yeah. The frustrations are a great indicator, because you just have to analyze them a little bit. Uh-huh. We gave the example of the time that we were having with our kids. It wasn't quality time. Roll with the punches.
Here we go again. Thank you guys for your patience. I appreciate that. And thank you, audience, everybody. Sorry for the interruptions. The internet's probably being overloaded with everybody at home now. So that'd be my guess.
Good thought.
That's true.
So anyway, continuing our discussion, part 3 for today. Talking, again, intentionally parenting, and, now it's a whole nother world that many, many parents have stepped into, and whether they like it or not, we talked a good amount about homeschooling and, what that's, what that's doing to the family, the benefits of it, how parents can actually take advantage of this season that we're in, and, not be intimidated by it, not be fearful, and don't feel like it has to look a certain way. Every family runs different. There's a rhythm to each family. And so, as a parent, don't get caught up in, it has to be their school schedule, from 7:30 to 2:30, and it has to be constant, doing this or that. It's fluid, it changes, and it should really kind of work around your own life and work around, your job or, your the things that you have. It can, so it's flexible.
Yeah.
Right. So because of that, it actually creates a new opportunity for parents to build their relationship with their kids, to spend more quality time. And so for that, I'm excited. I think that this is a tremendous opportunity for parents to get out of their comfort zone.
Yeah.
Learn something, new. I know we're getting a lot of updates from our school and some of the parents in the schools updating us, and they're working hard to like send reading material out and issue Chromebooks and try to like actually migrate to an online learning path until things settle down.
Yeah.
So that's helpful. But I think it's a great opportunity for parents to really engage with their kids more and be parents.
Yeah. Well, I think that's one thing too, is really just if you think about intentional parenting and just intentional living at all, this is an opportunity for your family to grow together.
Yeah.
Like everybody is going to grow during this season because it's uncomfortable.
Right.
Everybody's been thrust into a new set of circumstances, everybody, and that affects people, right? And so like even I would really strongly encourage you not to overschedule your kid's day, because now for the first time in a long time, they're probably going to like get some space to release whatever has been like left unreleased because of the schedule they had previously been living.
Oh, that's good.
Yeah.
There's a invitation there is what I hear you saying.
Well, yeah, there's an invitation because so when we don't release like just to think about the kids nowadays, right? You've got tons of kids that are feeling anxiety at such a young age.
Mm-hmm.
And why are they feeling anxiety? Well, part of it is because they don't have the space to let their bodies release all of the things that are going on, all of the changes that are happening in their body, in their life, in their home, whatever, like all the things. And so that's kind of like one intentional thing that you could do during this time is just give your family some free time. And I'm going to tell you, I'll just like kind of give it to you with a warning.
Mm-hmm.
That free time might not look super peaceful, but if your kid is having like a meltdown, a tantrum, or you're having a meltdown or a tantrum, let's like be totally honest. It's because there's things inside of you that are unsettled, but the only way to allow like yourself to look at them or your child to look at them is if they get expressed. And so really giving some freedom and not being so like hard-nosed on all the things that are going on, because it's such a significant transition that people are navigating.
Right. And I think so we keep harping on the same thing, right? That it's a change, it's an opportunity, there's intentionality in there. But for those of you who don't recognize, who are still like, you know what, darn it, like what the heck is intentionality? Right? To even simplify even further, it's you have no idea for the most part what your kids are thinking or feeling throughout the day at school. Mm-hmm. Now, all of a sudden, there's an opportunity for you to ask them, what do you normally do today, right? Like these moments of discomfort are always invitations to deeper parts of relationship and connection with your kids if you take the invitation, right? Yeah. The party still happens if you don't go, right? But like you don't get to be a part of the party unless you take the invitation.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
well, and just to kind of tap on that, the whole thing is it triggers the parts of us that aren't comfortable with the change ourselves.
Right.
And we don't know as a parent what the heck to do, what's the right thing to do. We think if a moment isn't peaceful, it's not good.
Mm.
And Scott and I would we lay our lives down for the fact that conflict in the home or in a relationship, when handled intentionally and with care, can actually lead to deeper connection. So if
100%.
you're willing as a parent to say to your kids, hey, I don't know how to do this. We all get to do this together. Let's figure out, let's pick 5 things that we want to add into a day. Okay, there's going to be some reading, there's going to be some schoolwork, but we're going to add in some fun. We're going to add in some fitness. We're going to add in something creative.
Yeah.
And be willing to feel the discomfort yourself of not knowing, like, what's next.
And what Kaylin just did was she gave you the roadmap, like from all the way to part one, when you talk about family values. You live by values. You have a certain like true north, and whether you know what it is or not doesn't really matter. It's there.
Right.
You actually have to pull them out. So for us, it's about faith, family, fun. You know what I mean? And freedom. Like, so we use those as navigators to what we want to do, and we make sure that they're part of our life. So like one thing that we might do for freedom is we might just go to the beach one morning when we weren't planning to, when everything suggests that we shouldn't. Yeah. Right. But like for those pieces, it's super practical. You can go out and play soccer with your kids in the backyard for 30 minutes. You know what I mean? Because the cool thing, if you really, and this is going to get a little geeky, but like if you really look into like the human mind, especially the young minds, it's areas of high emotion and spontaneity that actually create memories. Yes. So what other opportunity do you have than to create the most spontaneity there are, right? And if your navigational like belief would suggest that this is good if there is peace, then man, you're missing it. Like you're totally missing it, because like I would say, like, again, we're people of faith. So I believe like the gospel is most clearly lived out in failure. Right. And it's when we can actually be honest with our failure that we can invite our children to recognize like we're not perfect and we're just trying to figure it out. And that's a deeper connection. So like if you're just overwhelmed with the idea of what intentionality looks like or how to create structure, just be you. Like be who you actually want to be. Don't try to be the parent who's got 4 kids and who wants a house full of peace. That's not your season of life. Right. Sorry that we had to tell you that, but it's not. Right.
But this have healthy expectations.
Yeah, it totally is. And what's necessary is to make sure that like you are seeing where these I'm losing my words here, but like your true north is. If it's about fun, if fun's important to you, then have fun, right? If order is important to you, then make order fun. Because most children, I'm not a child expert, okay, but most of them like fun.
Yeah.
Right.
And fun is a common language with them. If you can make it fun, then it can be interesting, and you can actually accomplish covertly the things that you want to. Hey, let's clean up the garage. It will be fun. So just take those little pieces and just implement them in your imperfect way. And like the big secret, guys, is it's not going to be perfect. That like it's okay for your kids to know that you don't know what the heck's going on. It doesn't actually release any authority that you have as a parent. It probably provides a whole lot of exhaling so that they don't feel like they don't know what's happening either. Right. And then just clear expectations. I saw this on a post the other day. It was really, really valuable. And it said something along these lines. Mommy and daddy's job is to keep you safe. That is not your job. Right. So we take that job very seriously, and you don't have to ever worry about that job keeping you safe. So your job is to have fun, right? And be a kid and play. And our job's going to be to keep it safe. You just let us do our job. And you know what? We're going to let you guys do your job too. Clear expectations, super in alignment with what you want. And if you don't know what you want, pick something. Pick one thing and just do it.
Yeah, I think that's kind of the simple thing for right now. Because, again, this is our space. So we have so many different ideas and whatnot. So if you find yourself even overwhelmed at all the different things we're saying, it's like just pick one thing. Like Scott said, our kids are going to have this in their memory. Our kids are going to have this in their memory. So you get to decide. I don't say you get to decide. You get to have influence in how they remember it. And so one thing that what we're doing, and if anybody wants to come and be a part of it, please, say in the comments, I want in. We're creating a Facebook page, Being with the Benhams, and the page has been actually created for a while. We just haven't invited people to it. We haven't been active on it. But we have decided that we are going to create fun experiences and that spontaneous experience for our children. And we actually want other families to do it at the same time and be going live in our group.
Yeah.
So so like one example is, we had to cancel my son's birthday party or postpone it because of this thing. And so, but he was going to have a Nerf birthday party. So if any of you know our children, please don't tell them we're going to do this. But one of the things, just to give you a teaser, is we're going to like ambush the kids with a Nerf war.
Oh,
we're
nice.
going to like we're going to like put a scavenger hunt together where they're going to have to find their gear and they're not going to know where we're hiding. And we're going to ambush them with some serious Nerf, a Nerf war. And just doing things like that, unexpected, that will take, the total process will take probably an hour of our time to kind of plan and put the things around. And then, maybe that will last like 30 minutes of fun, but that memory is going to be there forever.
For sure.
Perfect
And
example.
so if you want to come into the group, say I want in, and we're happy to do that. And we're going to do a bunch of different things like that, just spontaneous things that you really can even connect back with the child in you that will have fun. And when you engage with your kids at that level, you'll be able to like release some of the fear that you've been feeling,
100%.
release some of the anxiety and the stress of the unknown, because you'll realize like right here in this moment, I am alive to this war or this Nerf gun thing or this whatever the fun is. And you're connecting with people that really are valuable to you.
Yeah. And you can, if you don't comment below or you're just listening, you're driving or whatever, you can just search in Facebook Being with the Benhams, and it's a group. We'll let you in, and only thing we ask is that you have fun, right?
Yeah.
Consider it some fun and some cool ideas, and engage so that we can make the best of it.
We'll also put the link in the comments of the video too, so that people can find it
Awesome.
easier. That's really good. So what have you guys? I know this time. It's relevant, so it's hard to get away from the subject, but I know that there's some people that are in panic mode. You can see that all over the media. Some people are at peace. I'm at peace, and I think it's really important that the parents understand that the way they handle this is the way their kids are going to handle it, and the way that, if they project fear or panic, then their kids are going to be fearful and panicking. But you said it well earlier. Our job as parents are to protect our kids. So even if a parent is feeling, even if you are feeling, you're anxious or fearful about what's going on, it's very, very important that you do not at all reflect that to your kids.
Yeah. Well, and that's kind of tough, right? Like, so there's lines there. We just went this morning, so we did leave the house all together and we went to our chiropractor's office, who is a friend of ours. And we were like, hey, are you seeing people today? And we got in his like first of the morning appointment. So we're, not going after a bunch of people. And because, for us, health is very important. So we do a lot of preventative health. And so we went to the chiropractor, and even us, we were like, okay, let mommy and daddy touch all the doorknobs on the way in. Like, you know what I mean? And it's like that, even us, who we feel at peace too. And we also feel like, hey, we have a responsibility to follow the orders, like follow the things that the authorities are sharing with us. Like my mom is local. She fits in that older category. So she's vulnerable to this, to the virus and it affecting her in a different way. And so because that, we consider ourselves like we're taking responsibility as
guardians.
Yeah, like we're protecting her too. And so, but even in that short outing, we literally went there and we came home. The intentionality that we needed to have mentally in order to make our like requests for them not to be touching everything seem fearful, it was like, it took intentionality.
Right.
And we don't have fear, but in that moment when you're like, oh my gosh, they touch everything, you're like, oh my gosh, this is what they're talking about. You know what I mean? So you can't be oblivious and be like, oh, la, 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 we're in peace. you have to have a sense of responsibility and actually address what's happening, and then just come clean with your kids. Like, hey, yeah, there is a little bit of this that's unnerving, but ultimately we have peace. You know what I
Right,
mean?
right.
Like, so it doesn't have to be one or the other either. It can be, hey, we have peace. It's going to be okay.
But we got to respect the boundaries that exist because of this thing that happened.
Right. Right.
Yeah, well, even in that, it's a huge learning opportunity for our kids, to learn, to respect authority, to follow the rules, follow the recommendations, and all these things. Like you said, this is going to be a time where they remember. Talking with my 19-year-old daughter yesterday, we're, walking through the stores and kind of just, laughing at the situation to see what people are, we find our values now in these days, what is the most valuable thing for people, the things you cannot find in the store.
Yeah.
Right. So, we walked and we talked and she told me, she's like, this just seems like surreal. Like, it seems like it's really not happening. And I was like, well, I've never seen it happen in my life, and so, hopefully we don't again, but it's, it was also a moment that I recognized where this is a good connecting moment with her. Just stroll through the store, peaceful, just observing and talking about it, was an opportunity where I built, connection. And I know that conversation, just how it was, we had fun with it.
Yeah.
Like you said, we had fun with it. And so opportunities like that are really valuable to take advantage of.
Yeah. Well, and that's homeschooling.
Yeah, that's true.
Right. So for all those that are like, now I have to homeschool. It's like, no, that right there is homeschooling. Creating a conversation based on what your child or you is noticing is like evolving a part of them that is learning and is taking in new information and contemplating it and thinking about it and identifying feelings that come with it, and then putting something out as a comment or as a, an observation or whatever. That's learning. That's beautiful.
I mean, how often do you get the opportunity for something completely unique to happen?
Yeah.
Right. In your lifetime. I mean, we're pretty close in age, right? So like in your lifetime, this unique thing happened. You have a young adult daughter who's now who's looking at dad and being like, how is he dealing with this? Right.
Yeah.
And like that, there's a lot of things that kind of clink into place. I just have to believe that in terms of all those things. I remember it, I just remember, like, I feel like each generation has their thing, or maybe there's multiple things, right? For my parents' generation, it was, when John F. Kennedy was assassinated, like they remember exactly where they were. And it's like these unique things you get to actually, it's almost like all of a sudden, like you turn yourself inside out and your kids get to see what's actually there.
Yeah.
What do you want them to see?
Yeah.
That's good. That's so true. Yep. Very, very good. That's why it's important that we also be anchored in our faith, be anchored in what we believe.
Mm-hmm.
And, I encourage every family to really take a look at your family values. Like you said, I mean, you have them whether you know it or not, but recognize what they are. And there's no greater time to really be able to take a look at them than now, because they're out there and they're showing up in how you're responding, in, what you're doing and what you're saying, and what you're allowing in your home.
Absolutely.
And so, if things need to be shifted a little bit, then shift them. If things are good, then solidify it and encourage your kids in that. This conversation's been very good. I apologize for the technical difficulties, but I appreciate you guys coming on. And I know that we plan on continuing this conversation next week, right?
Yeah.
So I'll post the event here later on today about the next time that we're going to meet. I believe it's next Monday. But I'll get that event created so that we can continue this. I really appreciate you guys coming on and diving into this. So next week, I think we'll be talking more on the intentional part, and we'll cover more outside of homeschooling. I mean, maybe we'll hit that again a little bit, but outside of homeschooling, there's a lot of intentionality that we can take as parents. And so if you're a parent watching this, whether live or on the replay, next week we're going to go into the nuts and bolts of what does it mean to be intentional, and how can you create, maybe if you've been intentional, you might realize after next week's broadcast that there's some room to grow.
Yeah.
And if you really maybe have just been going with the flow and not been very intentional, no condemnation. You're not going to walk away from that feeling beat up, but you're going to have a roadmap now to where you can begin to take that first step. And it only takes one step to really start a beautiful journey of being able to be intentional in your parenting. So I'm looking forward to it. It's going to be a lot of fun, guys.
Yeah, we are too.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, and I think we're splitting up on that. So I think it's Scott first and me second, maybe. Okay. So, it'll be good.
Yeah, it's going to be a great conversation. So, guys, take advantage of this time. If you have a question that you have intentional parenting, email it, put it in the comments. We will definitely get to those questions, and that will actually help, frame the show. So, we'd like your involvement in that, and appreciate you guys for being on again. So, before we go, real quick, what would you say? How would you define parenting accurately?
Well, you want to go, right?
Yeah, I'll start. Parenting accurately is really about like what's important to you and what your value system and your core values are. Yeah. Right. So we all want things for our family. And we're big believers in trying to bring the autopilot or the subconscious things to our consciousness to be aware of them. Right. So things that we're unaware of, let's bring them to our awareness. And if we don't like what we see, let's change it. Right. Yeah. So every family's different. Every culture is different. Every family's values are different. You're not going to have the same belief system that we are. But something tells me that there are things that you're unaware of that you're doing or that you're not doing that you want to do or don't want to do. Yeah. And parenting accurately, like from my definition, is just to choose those things intentionally. And when you choose them, like when you change the way you look at things, the things you look at change. And as a result, things start to change, relationships start to change. And when you stop looking at conflict as just conflict and an invitation for a deeper connection with your children or with your spouse, then all of a sudden conflict isn't so bad. It's not avoided.
That's good.
Yeah. Yeah. And, I would say parenting accurately, like my definition of parenting accurately would be really just recognizing the individual identity of each child and each parent, like each part of that family unit, whatever the family is, and really as the parent taking that responsibility to partner, like if you're a person of faith, partnering with God to know how to encourage and equip and help that individual identity of that child to stay alive throughout their life. And then recognizing that it's a partnership between you and your child. So in when they bring up something or bring into the world something that taps against a part of you, parenting accurately looks like taking the responsibility to say, like, no, that's actually my issue. Like it's my issue that I don't like loud things in the house. Right? It's not their issue. And now they've tapped up on my issue that I don't like loud things in the house. And how do we work together to create an environment that works for everybody?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And so that's more like conceptual, but that idea, that's what I would say personally for me, parenting accurately is really just honoring the individual identities of each people and knowing that everybody is there to help everybody else grow.
Yeah, that's really good. Very well said from both of you. Awesome. Thank you guys. And we'll definitely look forward to seeing you next week.
Awesome.
Thanks,
Thank
Jason.
you so much, Jason.
Thank you. You guys have a good one.
See you later.
Bye.
Well, there you have it, guys. Again, that was an awesome conversation. If you are catching the last part of it, I encourage you to go back to the first. We had to break it up into 3 different sequences because we had some technical issues. But I believe I'll probably be going back and putting them together into one video and then uploading it again. So Thank you guys for tuning in. I appreciate it. And if you guys have any questions that you would like answered for the next session next week, I'm going to be bringing them back on. We're going to continue the discussion of intentional parenting. Please email us, send it in, and I look forward to seeing you guys. Have a good one.